Alright, get ready. Today we're looking and expanding our understanding of slope by moving into slope-intercept form. For this lesson, you want to make sure that you are understanding how to write a linear equation in slope-intercept form, and then also how to use that form to graph the line. So far when we've been graphing, we've been able to graph a line by using points on the line, such as the x and y-intercept or a table. We're actually going to be looking at the ways we can use knowing the y-intercept and the slope in order to graph the line. So let's go through the steps. In this situation, we are given a slope, which you remember, you know, is the rise, which how much we go up or down over the run. And we're also given the y-intercept. So for step one, we're going to graph or mark the y-intercept. So in this case, our y-intercept is 4. So I'm going to graph a point on the y-axis at 4. Now we're going to count out the slope. So in this case, we're going to do our rise or run. Now, I want you to be aware that there's different ways we can read this. We can read it as -2 over +5, or we can read it as +2 over -5. As long as we're just using the negative on one of the numbers. A common mistake I see is that people put it with both. So here, I'm actually going to count this out. So I'm going to do my rise first. I'm going to go down 2, and then I'm going to go +5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to graph a new point at 5, 2. And we can actually do it again. We go down 2, and then over 5. And now you should see that we have a line. For our points. Now they say 2 points. I always like to do at least 3 when I graph, however. Alright, so now it's your turn. Why don't you take out a piece of graph paper and see if you can graph the line using this slope and this y-intercept. So once again, our slope is 4. So I'm going to go and draw a y-intercept at 4. My slope is -1/2, so I can either do that as -1 over 2 or +1 over -2. I'm going to choose to do -1 over 2 because I'm already kind of at the top of my graph. So I'm going to go down 2, or oops, see, down 1, and then over 2. And I'm going to go down 1, over 2 again. Go ahead and pick a line. And there's my line. Alright, so now let's actually take our understanding and look at what slope-intercept form of an equation actually looks like. So if a line has a slope of m and the y-intercept b, then the line is described by the equation as y equals mx plus b. Where m is our slope, b is our y-intercept, and x and y represent a point on the line. So now what we're going to do is, with the given slope and the given y-intercept, we're going to just write the equation for that line. So y and x are typically always going to be in the equation, so you can think of it like this. Y equals blank times x plus blank. Now in this case, we just fill in the blanks. So the first one that is their mx, so it's our slope. So in this case, -9. And then our second blank is our b, which is our y-intercept, so -5/4. For this particular problem, because it's plus and negative, we could actually still write this equation as y equals -9x, but instead of plus and negative, we could write it as just -5/4. So keep that in mind whenever you're looking at equations later. So why don't you go ahead and pause the video and try this next one out on your own. So here, same thing, we're going to have y equals, it's going to be our slope, which is 3, times x, plus our y-intercept, which is 1. Now sometimes we're not given the y-intercept, all we know is the slope of the line and some points on the line, or a point on the line. So if we have to write an equation for that line, first thing we're going to do is find the y-intercept. Now how do you do that, you may ask? Well, since we know that the general equation is y equals mx plus b, we simply plug in what we know to solve for what we don't. So you may say we don't know y and x because those usually stay it, but we do because we have the ordered pair for the point. So our y would be 4 is equal to our slope, which is 2, times our x value, which is 3, plus b, because that's what we don't know so far. So 4 is equal to 6 plus b. I really need to do a better job of making my 6's look like numbers and not letters. So here I'm going to go ahead and subtract 6 from both sides. So -2 is equal to b. And now I can write my equation as y equals my slope, which was 2, times x, and then it's going to be -2, or plus a -2. Alright, so here we have our equation in slope-intercept form. Now we're actually going to graph the line. So I always like to identify my slope first and my y-intercept. So remember, my slope is always what's being multiplied by x, so in this case 3. And my y-intercept is what's being added to x. So on this one, since we have -1, our y-intercept is -1. I'm going to graph that first. And my slope is 3, but that's really 3 over 1. So now I'm going to go up 3 over 1, up 3 over 1. Now I want you to watch. I could also make this a -3 over -1, and it's going to work the same way. I'm going to go down 3 and then back 1. But it still lines up on that same line. Sometimes we're given a line and we need to write the equation. So same type of thing. We're going to fill in what we know. So y equals, we need to find our slope times x plus our y-intercept. I like to identify my y-intercept first, which is right here. It's -2, so I know I'm going to have -2. Now I'm going to look for another spot. Now in this case we have another point graphed. But basically, remember, I'm looking for another point where my graph crosses the grid lines evenly, so it's a clear point. So like any of these spots like this. So now I'm going to count. So rise first. So I'm going up 1, 2, 3, 4. So I went up 4. And then I went to the right one, which is a +1. That's the same thing as just 4. So my equation is y equals 4x minus 2. Alright, so now it's your turn. Why don't you go ahead and pause the video and try this one out for yourself. Okay, so on this one we have y equals something times x. Our y-intercept is -3, so I'm going to put -3. Now I'm going to count between the 2 points that are graphed. So my rise is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. So I went up 4, +4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I went in a +4 direction. So my slope is +1. So I can either write this as 1x minus 3 or just y equals x minus 3. Alright, so here's another one for you to try out. Okay. In this case, our y-intercept is positive 1, so it's going to be x plus 1. But on this one, I'm going down 3 steps, so negative 3, and then I go in a direction of positive 1, which is the same thing as just negative 3, so this is negative 3x plus 1. Same thing here, so we have y equals, my y-intercept is 3, so we have x plus 3. Now here, my rise is 0, my run is 1, which is the same thing as 0. So this becomes 0x plus 3, but since 0 times anything is 0, my equation actually just simplifies to y equals 3. Let's try the same thing. So y is equal to blank times x. Now here, we don't have a y-intercept, so we can't actually even add anything. It would be like plus 0, but it's not even really 0 because it never actually crosses. So this is actually a unique situation. Since it's not a function, this form doesn't work because it never crosses our y-axis, so we can't have y in the equation at all. On this one, we only cross the x-axis and only have an x-intercept, so it's going to be x equals where it crosses, where it equals 2. So if you ever see an equation where it's just x equals a number, that's going to be a vertical line. So if x equals a number, that's our equation for a vertical line. And if you remember from the last one, it was just y equals a number, and that was a horizontal line. And these are honestly kind of tough concepts for people to remember because it's backwards for what you think, because vertical, we usually think of that y movement, but you have to think about what line is the, what axis is the line actually crossing. So now let's just look at an application for slope-intercept form. If a closet organizer charges $100 initial consultation fee plus $30 an hour, the cost as a function of the number of hours worked is graphed below. So let's just look at this graph a little bit. So here we can see our y-intercept, and we see that it's going up at a constant rate because it's linear. So if we take that information, we can actually write an equation to represent the cost as a function of the number of hours. So here, our cost is equal to, well, since it's $30 per hour, that 30 is our rate of change or our slope. So it's going to be 30x plus the initial fee, or our y-intercept, which was 100. So here, the slope was 30, and that was our rate of change or our cost per hour. And then the 100 is our y-intercept, and that's the start fee or initial fee. Now we can use our equation to find the cost for 12 hours of work by taking 30 times 12 plus 100. So this becomes 360 plus 100, or $460. Let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, you can go ahead and get started on your work. And just so everyone's clear, that's $460.